I am live. That's funny. Guess what? Something didn't happen. All right, that's going to be fun. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Raw and Unscripted show with yours truly, Christopher Rausch, your no excuses coach. This is how we handle technical issues. We're in the wrong studio on our software, and we're in an old podcast that we did way back when, the Unfiltered Experience. And truth be told, for those of you guys who remember the Unfiltered Experience, Scott and I might be coming back in 2026 for a limited run of podcasts. You guys still keep asking, like, where's Scott? Where's Scott? Where is Scott? Scott Goyette was out here in California. Didn't even come by and see me, motherfucker. But anyways, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. We appreciate you guys. We are here every single Tuesday night, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live. And of course, the podcast comes out every single Wednesday at 3 o'clock in the morning. I just want to say a huge thank you. I know I keep saying this, but thank you. We're in 98 countries now, and I am blown away. We started this podcast 6 years ago in January of 2019. So next month is going to be our 6-year anniversary. We've done 376 shows. I can't remember exactly. Actually, 347 shows. And if you ever want to check those out, we're on podcast everywhere. So wherever you get your podcast, you can also check us out on YouTube. If you're listening to this, of course, the video cast is very popular. We've been doing the video cast for 6 years now, so you can go back and check that out. And I just encourage you to stay with us and to tune in 2026, because we got a lot more interesting subjects and topics that you guys have requested for me to broach here on the conversation. We're going to be bringing back guests tonight. I'm happy to say we have a guest. We have an amazing guest tonight. So this is going to be a pivotal conversation, unlike we've had in a while. And I've done some solo shows where I've talked about what's going on in the world today. And I've talked about, people have asked me, like, Chris, I just want things to go back to normal. I did that show that there is no normal, like, get adjusted to it, that things are going to constantly be in change and in flux and in flow. And the sooner that we get to the ability and our confidence and our awareness to be able to handle those shifts and handle those kind of waves in life and realize that there is not going to be what was, then we can kind of sit there and kind of settle into that and realize that there is power in the opportunity of change. And there's power in the opportunity of what's coming ahead. It's not just all based upon fear. And I've talked about that in a couple of different episodes. Another episode that I did not too long ago was talking about our negative self-talk and the way that we create our reality based on the words we use of ourselves. But not only that, the conversations that we intentionally have, we support the thoughts and the theories that are going on in our brain. But do we ever really test to see what's true? Like, seriously, like, when you get social media posts and people send you articles and you look at them and you get all fired up and you're like, oh, motherfucker, that's such bullshit. You catch a 13-second excerpt of a 30-minute interview and you're like, that motherfucker, I see. Well, we just did that a couple episodes ago where we talked about that. And people have reached out to me afterwards and they said, Chris, your point on this, your point on that really opened my eyes. And that's what the show is all about. The show is about opening your eyes and opening the possibility to what is next, and open the possibility and the opportunity for you to, instead of reacting and being upset and being mad that things aren't like they were, the shift is in who you're becoming and what's becoming and what are the opportunities and that you can go for, right? So many times people are saying, I want to start a business, I want to do that. There's never been a better time. There's never been more technology and more opportunity for you to reach millions and millions of people, for you to sell your products on TikTok Shop, for you to do things. But so many people are bitching, they're mad, oh, this and social media and that and that and that. They're not doing anything and they're going to get left behind, right? We talked about that in a recent show too. Tonight's conversation, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be very special. I want to read you a couple of things. I'm going to read a couple of things in what we're going to be preparing tonight. Last week, though, we did have another guest on. We had an amazing guest last week. His name is Mike Hill. Not Mike Hill. What am I fucking thinking about? Matthew Hill. I knew a Mike Hill. Matthew Hill was on last week. And that conversation was really, really interesting, really captivating. Gentleman from Britain. We talked about the fact that we know what to do, yet we don't do it. So we talked about procrastination. We talked about excuses. We talked about the mindset of realizing that the mistakes and the failures that we've had in our life, while some people can look at them as negative, those are opportunities. Those are stepping stones for you to become stronger, to become better. And we talked about that perspective. And really, he shared some deep stories about how you can shift your perspective about that and start to realize that life is happening for you and not to you. And that was a big thing. So I encourage you to go back and check that. We talked about how to train your mind. We talked about how imperfect action beats perfect planning every single time. Somebody be, oh, it's got to be this, it's got to be that. I'm waiting for this and I'm doing this. Just fucking do it. That's what Matthew Hill talked about. That was episode 346. So please do me a favor, go check that out as always. And I want to read you a couple of things. This is going to be about the conversation that we're having tonight. I want to read you an excerpt of the book that we're going to be talking about tonight. And I love this passage. Paul writes, the morning commute blurs past podcasts, music, honking horns, and the relentless ping of notifications. You're surrounded by people, yet utterly alone, each person lost in their own digital bubble. You clock in, sit through meetings or classes, answer emails, and you grind away at tasks you'll barely remember by day's end. The hours stretch by like taffy, each minute dragging, yet somehow slipping away too fast. You count the hours until lunch, the days until Friday, the weeks until vacation, always chasing that next fleeting moment of freedom. And then all the while you tell yourself, I'm in control, I've got this. My question to you is, do you really got this? Do you really got this? In this book that we're going to be talking about, The Hostage Effect, he states here, Paul also states, he actually shares a quote here. Throughout history, it has been the inaction of those who could have acted, the indifference of those who should have known better, and the silence of the voice of justice when it mattered most that has made it possible for evil to triumph. And that's from, I can't pronounce the name, Haile Selassie. But also he says, Paul goes in to start this chapter. He says, we stand at a crossroads, a pivotal moment in history where the world as we know it is being reshaped, not by the collective will of people, but those who seek to consolidate power and tighten their grip on control. Right? So this is just giving you a little flavor of what's coming up tonight in this conversation. There's one more quote that I want to read for you that's going to kind of set this all up for you. As I was reading Paul's book, it occurred to me, Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Funny enough, every time I was thinking of something, the next paragraph or the next page, literally Paul would write it and I'd be like, oh, fuck, we're thinking the same thing. We're thinking the same thing. But he includes this quote here. When we are no longer able to change a situation, we are very challenged to change ourselves. And you guys know from listening to the Raw Unscripted podcast, this podcast is all about how we can accept responsibility instead of shifting blame. We talk about that all the time. Oh, I blame my parents. I blame society. I blame my ex-husband. I blame my mother. I blah, blah, blah. Stop blaming. Start accepting responsibility. And that's the conversation we're going to be having tonight. So take notes. And if you're watching on the live podcast, of course, feel free to include us in conversation and ask us any questions you have. So without any further ado, please help me welcome to the show, Mr. Paul Nadeau. How are you? Nadeau. Fuck. See,
Nadeau. You got it right, man. You got it right off the bat. I give you full points for that one, buddy.
Oh, thank you. What's going on, Paul? I appreciate you being here tonight. I know it's late up there in the East Coast. Whereabouts are you again?
I'm in Toronto, Ontario, downtown.
That's right. What the hell we got in the chat already? You know what I've been getting some weird people in the chat these days. Robert Broker's in the house. Says hello, Paul. Robert's a fellow Canadian. So hello, how are you doing, brother? How are you doing? And what do you think of the show opening? How does that whet your appetite for what you want to talk about tonight?
I love the fact that you went through the book and that there were certain quotes and passages within the book that resonated with you. I also like the fact that you were thinking 1 or 2 pages ahead, wondering whether or not I was going to touch on a particular topic.
Learned helplessness. I said it out loud, and the next fucking page, learned helplessness was on there.
Right.
Swear to God. I remember it.
I remember you and I met probably 5 years ago during COVID, And we spoke the same language back then.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that you and I are on the same path and the same journey doesn't change the fact that we still think very much alike. And when I asked to speak about this book, it was because I had a message to deliver, and I thought, I bet you he would resonate with the topic and the instructions and the guidebook that's also attached to it. And I was right.
Absolutely. No, when I was reading this, I literally thought to myself, Paul, if I was to write a book about what's going on and how we can collectively get our shit together around the spinning blue marble in space, you wrote it. Like, I was sitting there thinking, I agree with this. I'm agree with this. I'm like, oh my God. And I was telling you, and I'll tell people this, that watch the show and listen to the show. I'm not a note taker. I'm not a big preparer of the show. I will go online and I'll research people and I'll think about, okay, what's the direction? What do I want? Really what I think about is, what do I want the viewer, the listener to walk away knowing? What do I want? What steps do I want them to take in order to take that little progress so that they can come back next week and grow a little bit more and grow a little bit more. But like I told you before, I wrote 10 pages of handwritten notes and questions and ahas and all that stuff. So we're not going to get in all 10 pages because that would be a 7-hour podcast. But in thinking about people listening tonight, we're in 98 different countries. We have all sorts of different walks of life. And you know this. What do you want to get across most to people listening and watching this in your own words? And what do you want them to really see for themselves and see for the world?
First and foremost, I want to remind people that we are resilient. No matter what we're going through right now, it's often nothing compared to what other people have gone through over the centuries since the beginning of time. We went from fighting saber-toothed tigers to fighting wars to now being in an era where our liberty feels threatened, but it's not the first time. And it is through this resilience that people have been able to fight back and have been able to retain their autonomy and their agency. And collectively, together, we can get through anything. That's one of the lessons that I wanted to deliver in this book. The other one that I wanted to deliver is the message that we are all more similar than we are different. You've heard me say this before, is that we all laugh, love, and bleed in the same way. And the hostage effect is something that is affecting 90% of the globe right now. It's a disease. It has, just as COVID hit us as fast as it could, and really it immobilized us, it paralyzed us, it locked us into homes and restricted our movements and our thoughts. The fears that came over a whole globe at a time where we weren't expecting it. This is what the hostage effect has done to the world. We are feeling this virus that is choking us, that is making us wonder what's going to happen tomorrow, what news flash is going to happen, what rights are going to be taken away. Will I have a job to go to? Will I have food to eat? Why am I so angry at the world? This is a disease. It's called the hostage effect, and it has gripped us all, Chris. Those are the two, I guess, lessons that I would like to impart with this audience. And thank you all, 98 countries. You guys are great for tuning in. And Christopher, thank you for having me on this show. But I, as you know, from having read the book, I am passionate about bringing awareness to the globe that, yes, this too shall pass. We've heard this in bad times. We've thought, my God, I'll never get through this, right? And when we look through history, which I've touched on in many chapters of the book, I brought out historical events that people were able to not only manage, but survive and to prosper. And again, the globe, as you said in your opening, these waves, and when I was watching you do this with your hands, these waves of highs and lows, those are one of the ways that we're in right now. And it feels like we're in a low. Mm-hmm. But we can master our own thoughts and get through anything, really.
Yes. Yeah, I agree with you 1,000%. And we're like-minded thinkers. We're thinking about the possibilities, the opportunities, the fact that we have to be aware and accept responsibility. But when you look at statistics and you look what's being purported, 50% of the people in the world somewhat are want this divide, want this change, want this destruction, want this tear down, want this revitalization. So there's all those people out there with their own set of truths and beliefs. And what I found out, Paul, and I want to get your idea on this, even though people are split in those perspectives and how to do it and who should do it, and in the pendulums we talked about before going on camera, the pendulum swinging both ways on the right and the left, depending on where you're at. How do we bridge that divide? Right? Because I'm talking to people and they're telling me, they're like, Chris, we want the same thing. And ultimately, when I've taken a step back and I think about it, like, what are my friends saying on different sides and different beliefs and everything? They're ultimately saying we want the same thing. We want opportunities, we want security, we want safety, we want people held responsible, But it's that divide of how we get to that. What's, in your opinion, how do we bridge some of that that's going on? Because so many people are sold on their truth. Everybody I talk to is like, they believe their thing and nothing is going to change it. And it's mind blowing. So what are your thoughts on that? And how can we kind of start to get into that?
You are so right about that. And I hear you. But that's one of the things we have to take control of our own selves and be willing to listen to the opposition, but to listen hard. Tell me why you feel this way. Tell me, what it is that I'm missing here, or that I may be missing here, and open the door to meaningful conversation, and also to do a little bit of research on our own. I feel sometimes I'm talking to somebody who may have very, very different beliefs than I have. And I'm wondering, how did they drink the Kool-Aid? What Jim Jones Kool-Aid did they drink, right, that is making them not see the full picture? And that's the problem. When you start to believe a lie or a series of lies, or what may not be a lie, but something very different, you have to really ask yourself, what am I basing this on? Like, what am I truly basing my beliefs on? You said something that not only hit me, but I'm sure it hit a lot of people that were listening. People will yell and scream when they come across a 15-second clip on TikTok or Instagram and say, those dirty SOBs and this and that, but they haven't heard the full story.
Right.
Or they haven't stopped to be critical thinkers. AI is a tool that is now very prominent in our lives, and I use it often. I use it for the good. Mm-hmm. And I know some people out there are not using it for the good, and we're going to see a lot more of that.
Hang on one second, Paul. I just want to move to your left a little bit. There's a new thing where it's showing people are watching us on our cell phones. So there's a new feature here that shows me that. There you go. That way people can see both of our faces. There you go.
All right. Good enough. Good
Sorry
enough.
About that.
Hey, no problem. I was saying that AI has become a part of our world, and we can use it for both good and not good. But what I do often when I see something that I know it's meant to anger me, or I know it's meant to do something, I will go to AI and ask AI, do some research. Is what I'm hearing in this XYZ clip the truth?
Wow.
And not that AI is always going to come up with the right answer, but it gives me something. This is based on X, Y, and Z, and there's no factual foundation to it. At least I've got an opinion, another opinion that has been researched, and I have a little bit more knowledge, and maybe I can calm down a little bit, because I do. My social media feed, as I talk about in the book, is designed to spark you in different ways, and the algorithm knows how to get under your skin. Mm-hmm. And for people who want to know the truth, or people who want to make a difference, it's going to send you some stuff that's hard to take and hard to swallow, but you have to do your due diligence and research. Is this the truth? Critical thinkers. So that's a long way of answering your question. How do we bridge the differences? I think one of the first things that we do is that we seek first to understand and then to be understood. Stephen Covey said.
Dude, what does that say? Seek
Get
first.
out!
I swear to God, I just wrote it. I just wrote it. Seek first.
Oh my goodness!
But
You know what? Thank you for taking those notes. But it's true. We often want to talk first and lay down our position. But in business, you and I both know, and any business person out there who's listening, you know that the smartest person in the room is usually the one who speaks last, because they've heard everybody else's opinion and are able to draw a conclusion or a summary based on all the information that they have. I am willing to listen hard. You got to, and when I say listen hard, you got to listen with the soul. It's not just the ears, it's with the eyes, it's with the heart. It's really listening with the intent of trying to understand and to appreciate that we are all entitled to our different opinions. And maybe through meaningful conversations and asking everyone to do their due diligence and to research, do you really know what this leader is looking to do, or what harm it's doing, or what good it's doing, whatever side? But do you really know the consequence? We're not just talking about this generation.
Right.
In my country, in Canada here, we have a leader that I am not impressed with whatsoever. And I'm afraid that my children and my grandchildren will suffer the consequences of the decisions being made today, that they will be slaves to the state. And that if we don't gather around collectively and try to make a positive change, then we could all become what the hostage effect talks about, so compliant, and so this is just normal. And so what can I do and what can I say? It begins with you. It begins with you opening the door and inviting somebody in to talk. That's how I feel.
1,000%, dude. 1,000%. One of the biggest lessons I learned in my life, Paul, was that seek first to understand, then to be understood. And I watched my mother always being right and always being in control and always having to be understood. And I don't give a, what would she say? What would she say? I don't care what your opinion is, all this different stuff. And then I started learning, and I realized when I started watching successful people, I'm like, what do they do? They go, well, what is he saying? What? Can you tell me more about that, Paul? Hey, Paul, what I hear you saying is that you're really concerned about your kids and your grandkids, that there's this boiling frog theory that people aren't really in tune with, and the heat is rising and we're not realizing, then it's going to be too late. And then what you're advocating right now is that we become aware and we take action. Is that correct?
That is 100% correct. You're a great listener. And I love the fact that you summarized what I said, because this is one of the keys to success, right? In sales, we know that we always summarize at the very end. So if I understand you correctly, what you've just said is bang on, right on.
Yeah. And you did it great before. You talked about it. Like when somebody says something you disagree with or something that catches you off guard. Hey, can you tell me more about that? Where did that belief originate from? Is that something that your parents espoused about and that your belief, tell me more, where did that come from? And then just start asking questions. And half the time you ask them questions, and I find that usually about 6 questions in, they start questioning their belief. They start questioning their truth. And without me saying anything to them, you know what, Chris, maybe I need to do some more research on it. Maybe I need to think about this a little bit more. Just by me asking some questions. Hey, can you tell me more about that? Do you have any people with opposing views in your life that contradict you? Do you go and look for the difference of opinion in what you're doing? Would you be willing to spend a week defending the thing you're opposing? Could you do that? I challenged one of my friends one time. He's like, Fox News, blah, 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 blah. And I said, I challenge you. Watch that only for 2 weeks. Watch that for only 2 weeks. And you come back to me and you tell me if your opinion hasn't changed because of that's what you're doing, that sunk cost bias. Sure enough, within 4 days, he came back and he's like, Jesus Christ. He goes, I already started like, well, what about this? And what about that? I didn't know about that. And he came back to me. And here's the problem I have, Paul, is I don't know what to believe anymore. I don't know what's true, because when people send me articles and whatever side or whatever thing it is, and I look at it, it's got cited sources, it's factual, it's from, I don't know what news sources to trust anymore. So for me, it's almost kind of a resolve somewhat to, it is what it is. who am I? What am I going to do in the grand scheme of things? And I start to have that self banter in my brain, like, okay, well, maybe things have to crash and break in order for them to get better. Like you talked about Berlin Wall, Russia, Soviet, all these different things that have had to happen. Obviously, Nazi Germany, which, I know that we're talking about some of those things that are happening here in the boiling frog theory because people aren't seeing what's kind of happening. So what are your thoughts on all that? How do we unpack that for people who are listening that perhaps catch themselves being a little bit more opinionated and a little bit more assumptive rather than taking that opportunity to really truly understand? And what are they afraid of if they understand?
Yeah, what you have to come to grips with or what you have to resolve within yourself is, what do I want to achieve at the end of this? Where do I want to go with this? Am I happy being angry all the time? Am I happy yelling and screaming with the other side and pounding my fists? Am I following the crowd? Am I following people that I believe are right, but just for the sake of being included in something, in an argument or as a voice? It really comes down to what it is that you want from this whole experience, because we're all going through it. One of the things that we cannot do is we just cannot close our eyes to it and put our heads underneath the sand as ostriches would and just let it all go by, because when we lift our heads from the sand, the world may be very, very different. True. And at the end of my life, I want to look back on things and say that, you know what, despite everything, I did the best I could. And my voice, I didn't overstep. I made a difference, or I tried to make a difference. And I think this is very true. We all have to feel action. Now, on that note, I'm not advocating that people get involved and slam their fists and do all this. I'm just saying, be aware of who you are, what it is that you want out of this. Remain as calm as possible as the world seems to crumble and our rights as citizens and our democracies seem to be eroding, which I talk about a lot in the book, is that more and more our voices are being smothered. And in
what ways? Can you expand on that?
Sure. One of the ways that our voices are being smothered here in Canada is that there are laws in place, and the government is looking to put into place laws that could have you charged for saying the wrong thing. We're seeing this in the UK. We're seeing
that in the United States too.
You're seeing that in the United States too. Exactly. Our voices are being silenced. Is that if you don't agree with the main theme of this government, then we will remove your posts, we will remove your voice, and we will come knocking on your door. We can't let that happen. And we're seeing that happen more and more across the globe. And so for me, I know that it's important to have a voice, but to remain respectful. And you and I have talked about this on more than one occasion, in more than one room on Clubhouse, is that respect for one another goes a long way. And dignity, and giving dignity and respect, even in those times that are difficult to do, always has a positive consequence to it. So we also have to detach every once in a while. I talk about this very much in the book. The importance of finding what I refer to as an oasis within yourself, and just finding a place of peace and quiet where you can detach from the craziness of the world so that you can take care of your mental wellness through this. And like Rocky, get up from the mat after you've been rested and go on for another round, because it ain't going to get much better until it does. And that will be up to each and every one of us here. And if we don't take this seriously, Chris, it's just going to get worse.
I agree, brother. And speaking of your book, I want to talk about this. You say, whether we will escape, it's not whether we will escape, but whether we will fight to reclaim what should have always been ours. I was curious, what do you mean by that? Because I hear people say that, like, go back to when it was great and all this different stuff. So what do you mean, whether we will fight to reclaim what should have been ours? What does it mean to fight, and what is it that we're going to reclaim?
To reclaim it is our autonomy, our agency, our freedom. We were born free. We've heard this, we've seen movies, we've heard songs. We were born free. It's true. Many of us were not born in the greatest of places, but still, as human beings, we were born to live the best lives we possibly could under the circumstances. When I say that it's important for us to reclaim that freedom, I'm not only saying reclaim the freedom from the oppressors, I'm saying reclaim that freedom from within yourself. Viktor Frankl, who I'm going to use him as an example. You brought him up a little bit earlier.
And Viktor Frankl.
Yep. Man's Search for Meaning. For those of you who don't know, he was a psychiatrist psychologist. Yeah. He was captured during the Second World War and held in a concentration camp. And he was slated to die as many of the, everyone who had been captured. And he made observations even though he was in captivity. And those observations were that everything can be taken away from a man. And you used this quote earlier. But one thing, our freedom to think on our own and to really claim our freedom within the mind. You can take my body, you can crush my body, but you can never take my mind unless I voluntarily give it over to you. And I refuse to do that. So that's what I'm talking about. To fight to reclaim it means to fight not only the oppressor, but to fight those voices, as you said, those opposing voices. We have one voice on the one side that says, you'll never do this. You'll never be free. You'll always be depressed. You'll always be this. And if you listen to that little guy, you listen to that little demon, and you tend to give all your focus to that little demon, then it's going to be so. You'll never be free. But on the other side, you have another voice that tells you, you can fight this. Every day is a good day. You can start building something different. You are not your circumstances. You're better than your circumstances. It's rocky, come on with it. Let's do it. As Glenn Moore with it. Go with it. Glenn Moore show.
You're right. I was just thinking about it. I wrote down 3 different things, so I'm going to go with the one that I just did recently. You brought up something that's something I've been focusing on as part of my seek first to understand it, and to be a better listener, and to be a better interviewer, and to be a better dad and everything, is how we use the words that we use, right? So people will sit there and say, oh, it's so hard. And normally we just gloss over, okay, we all know what hard is. Yeah, hard is, whatever. But I'll ask the person, so what do you mean by hard? What do you mean by difficult? What do you mean by forever? What do you mean by I can't? Like, how does that play into it? And what I find, Paul, is that people sit there and they'll choose their words very haphazardly. Oh yeah, it always happens. It never is right. Well, I'm like, oh, never? Is it always? Well, you know what, Chris? I always say never. I shouldn't say never. No, it happened. Okay, how many times? Just for the conversation, 10 times, 20. Oh, the 3 or 4. I'm like, did you learn anything from the 3 or 4 times? Yeah. All right. Okay. So what's the deal? So is it so the words that you're saying, do you realize that they're creating this false sense of reality, right? Because you're conditioning yourself and you're telling yourself, oh, it's always hard and it's always these things. So when you use the word fight, talk to us about what that means, because different people are going to have, I know people are sitting there thinking Civil War fight. People are thinking, hey, I'm going to make a sign and go to a protest fight. Some people think, hey, I'm going to continue to share my opinions on social media, and I'm going to fight all the naysayers. So in your terms, what does fight mean, Paul?
It depends on the context. And let's take a look at fighting for what is right. Well, first of all, if we're fighting for what is right in a world that seems to be going crazy with the wars and with our leaders who seem to be leading us in a particular direction. Some of us agree and some of us don't agree with it. Let's fight for what is right in your heart. And that means to speak up and not to remain silent when speaking up is the right thing to do. To take a stance and and I'm not talking about, and I make this very clear in my book. My book is not a book about taking action to the point where you're picking up arms and you're fighting against the oppressors. It is really about becoming aware and speaking your truth in respectful ways, but you should do your homework before you take on that fight. It's like walking in to write an examination. Yeah, I'm going to write that test. I'm going to pass it. But if you didn't do your homework, you're taking a 50-50 shot that you'll ever make it through, right? So you'd better do your preparation. What is it that I'm actually saying? Because 5 or 6 questions in, as you've asked, some of the people that you've worked with, is like 5 or 6 questions in, somebody's going, well, I really didn't think that through.
I've seen it so many times.
Maybe I should think about that again, but yeah, so be prepared as you can. Otherwise, don't open your mouth, because if you're not prepared and you open your mouth, people will realize, well, maybe this is somebody we shouldn't be listening to. They don't really know what they're talking about. So that's one fight, is being prepared, knowing what it is, being a critical thinker. What is it I'm trying to say here? And what side of the fence should I be standing on? And why? Why is it? And why do I feel this way? Where does this come from? What am I prepared to do? Am I prepared to just go on social media? Yeah. Am I prepared to go on social media, bang my fists, write all kinds of nasty things on there that will never disappear from the internet, and then be judged as an idiot? Like, do I want to be the town idiot? Or do I want to add a conversation or something that is meaningful, that some people might say, I think you've got a point here. I'll go back about a year ago, before our current leader here in Canada was elected. I wrote a small piece on Facebook, just basically saying, here's why I am moving towards voting for this particular individual. And I just gave about 6 or 7 points that I felt were well thought out and that meant something to me. And I thought that I was going to get maybe 20 or 30 people commenting on it, right? So I write this piece, and it was about the law and my background a little bit, and why I felt that this individual, this candidate, really spoke my words. And it wasn't a very long post at all. 3.5 million people later, 2 million shares, people jumping on and screaming, and some applauding. And of course, I couldn't keep, 3.5 million, it was shared 2 million times. And my brother, who lives in Ottawa, quite a distance away from Toronto, he said, a friend of mine contacted me and said, is that your brother? And she lived out, is that your brother's post out there? And yes, it was.
Oh, funny.
I tell this story for this point, is that I had a lot of angry people who disagreed with me. And when I thought about responding when I could, because I could not keep up with the messages, but I responded by being polite and respectful, and appreciating the fact that they're weighing in, and giving them reasons why I felt the way I did, but not putting them down for having, you're crazy, you should be dead, all this kind of stuff. And it was funny what I got in return, Chris. I got people who were commenting, I've never seen anybody write something respectful, back to me when I've done this. And I said, well, you know what? We're all in the same boat. And if it sinks, it sinks. If it floats, it floats. But we've got to try to respond to each other in the best way we possibly can. So that's the first fight. The second fight is the fight that you have within yourself to retain your sanity. And I spoke of this a little bit earlier by saying that in the book, I call it Byzantium. Yeah. The Byzantium is a place that was written in 1928 by a poet. And the poet was talking about this mystical place in which people could go to and feel free and feel unattacked and all this kind of stuff. And I use this in the book to say, we all have that within each other, within ourselves. We all have that. So if we can find that peaceful place within us to go to, that could be gardening, that could be meditating, that could be
Loud music.
Loud music, right? Walking with your children, doing all this, right? It's great. What's the movie with Tom Cruise and Jamie Foxx, where Jamie Foxx plays a taxi driver?
Yeah.
I'm God.
I can
Anyway,
see it, but I can't.
Yeah, I can't think of it. But for all you listeners out there, you probably know the one I'm talking about. For most of you that that tune into this kind of a movie, but Tom Cruise plays an assassin. But Jamie Foxx's character, he's driving a taxi and he's got this dream. And there's a beautiful woman who jumps in his taxi at the very beginning of the show.
Nelly says Collateral.
Collateral, that's it. Thank you so much. It was Collateral, and I love that movie. I applaud to you. But there was that one scene where she's asking, well, how do you do this? Like, how do you, she's basically saying, how do you keep your brains in all this? And he flips over his visor and there's a little picture of an island. And he goes to that place and says, this is my, he doesn't say the words, but this is my Byzantium. This is my escape from the chaos in the world. And I think that that's the fight that we must all have within us, is that I have to escape. Otherwise, if I don't, I'll drown under all this chaos. All this anger will give me a heart attack, will make me, it will bring me in a place I don't want to be. And we need to retain our sanity through all this.
I couldn't agree more, Paul. I mean, it's so true. I see people to that point. There's so many points that you made to that point. People are compromising their mental health, and they're compromising their personal relationships with people they love very dearly. Not the people that they agree with, but not the people they disagree with, but the people they agree with. They're living with that toxicity. They're living with those people like being crazy and frustrated and all those different things. And they're watching their friends and their family like lose it. And so I always ask them, like, what are you in control of? What are you in control? Like you said, we said the word before, like I talk about the difference between responding and reacting. Like we can respond, we can choose a response. We can sit there and choose to say, you know what, that really pisses me off. And rather than having a reactionary moment and giving you a piece of my mind or being a keyboard warrior, let me chew on that and maybe say, why does that upset me so? Am I taking that personal? I teach people how to ask the questions. Like, how am I taking this personal? Like, why is this something that's getting under my skin? Why am I so passionate about this? And to your point also, I talk about this with people. It's where we focus. Where focus goes, energy flows, right? So if I'm focusing on the fact that so much is going on that we're different, like if I'm sitting there, I'm meeting Paul, what's different about Paul? Do we agree on things? What can I find out that's different about Paul, as opposed to looking at our similarities? And that's what I teach people, is like the fact that, we're always looking at the differences. And that makes us different. That makes us different. That makes us different. And then what's happening is people are throwing the baby out with the bathwater. Oh, you like that person, you're a terrible person. And based on the argument, sometimes I can understand that, because they'll say, well, I'm like, tell me why they're a terrible person. I happen to know that person is a huge philanthropist. I happen to know that other person saves kids off the streets of child sex trafficking. And I'm talking about like people that are very staunch in their Republican views, but they're very great people. They're business owners. They hire people. They do all these things, and we throw the baby out with the bathwater because we look for those differences. And what I want to talk about I want to go on to something else for a second, but I just realized I know who you are. I know where you've been. I've read your first book. I've had you on the Unfiltered Experience twice. We didn't give the opportunity for people who are listening and watching to know some of your backstory, Mr. Paul. Like, what makes you an expert on all the stuff that we've been advocating and talking about? I mean, I know you write comic books for a living. I'm kidding. But you've been in some, let me just preface this to people who are listening and watching. You have been in some really, really fucked up experiences. You have been in death experience. You've been all over the place. So give people like a 2-minute background of who Paul is and what some of your expertise is and why people should be listening to you.
Absolutely. And thank you for opening that door. My story is not unique. I am sure that there's millions and millions of people who have
Your
gone
child
through
is like mine.
our childhood. We talked about this. My father was a very violent alcoholic and mentally unstable, and I was abused severely, as were my brothers and sisters and my mom. And I mean, I was taken to a slaughterhouse at the age of 7.
That
And
story, dude. That story. Tell that story. Tell it. Oh my God. The graphic way you wrote that, I was like,
oh,
you should put a warning on that.
well, I thought about putting a warning at the very beginning of the book saying, that this contains some pretty chaotic stuff. So, but the stories are so real. My dad used to lock me in the trunk of the car, and he used to steal and do all kinds of things. And I think he had a couple of women on the side, but I was in the trunk of the car when most of that would happen. And on this particular day, he locked me in the trunk, and I remember listening to the music. And it's funny, at the age of 7, I could remember the song that was playing on the radio. It was an Nat King Cole song. And I could hear the tires below me, crushing on the gravel, and then all of a sudden the car stopping, and I'm wondering, okay, where are we now? The trunk opens, my dad lifts me out, the sun hits me, and I'm thinking, where are we? And when I looked up, I could see this house that looked like it belonged in a horror film. It was very nasty. And I remember there was a crow in a cage that squawked at me when I was walking by, because my dad was pulling me, and I thought, where are we going? All I could hear, Chris, was the sounds of babies crying, and it was coming from a building just behind this old house. And it was a white block building, a cement building that looked like a hangar. And I could hear all these babies crying, and then all of a sudden the babies would stop crying, and I thought, where are we going? And I could hear more babies crying. The closer we got, it was a nightmare. And I'm a little boy.
Horrid nightmare.
Oh,
I've heard some stories, but
I couldn't graphic. And to anybody who wants to read some interesting stories, but maybe a little bit graphic, as Chris said, maybe I should have given a forewarning before you buy the book. But when we finally got to that red door, and it opened, I felt like a little kid who wanted to die. I really did. And then the door swings open, and I realized what was screaming, what was crying, and they were pigs hanging from the ceilings, and a guy going around and just gutting them open. And I'm this boy being pushed to the front and watching all this happen. And the butcher, who then turns around and asks my dad, "Is this your kid, Leo? Is this your little boy?" Like, that kind of thing. And I'm thinking, oh my God, am I next? Like,
right.
What's happening here?
7 years old, I'd be shitting myself.
7 years old. And the guy, he said to me, "This is what happens to little boys who don't listen, who don't obey." And that was something that stuck with me for years and really scared the hell out of me. I never forgot that experience. But that and many other experiences that I talk about in the book, they didn't define me, but I believe they gave me a strength that I otherwise wouldn't have had. When my dad killed Santa Claus. Did you read that story?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. My dad killed Santa Claus when I was 8.
We don't have to worry about Christmas this year. Santa's dead.
That's right. That's pretty much it. 2 weeks before Christmas, my brother and I hopping on the stairway. Oh, hey, Christmas is coming. Christmas is coming. And funny, we are having this discussion about a week and a half from Christmas. So it really, it will resonate.
True, right?
When people listen to this in June, guess what? No, we had this 2 weeks before Christmas, and I'm telling you how my dad killed Santa Claus. So get the kids out of the room. But he killed Santa Claus with a 22, and he said to us when he got back from outdoors, he said, "I just killed Santa Claus. There ain't going to be a Christmas this year." And he goes and he puts his gun away. And you asked me to tell you a little bit about my past. This is a little bit about my past. And he used that same 22 to kill himself when I was 16. And all these things define me. At the age of 7, after a beating, I was lying on the ground and looking up at my dad, and I was bruised and beaten. And I remember looking up at him and thinking, when I grow up, I'm going to be a policeman so I can arrest you and people like you. So let's fast forward to after he passed away. I still had that promise within me that had taken root in my soul. And at the age of 21, I joined the police department. 2 years before I joined the police department, right after my dad's death, I don't know how I managed to do this, but I went to a local hospital and volunteered to be a call receiver on the suicide hotline. And for some reason, way back when, a kid with hair down to here, but I had a personality, and I convinced them that I was the right choice. And maybe it was because of my age that they gave me extensive training, and I was able to be on that call center line for 2 years. That really helped me in my career because I really listened to people. I learned how to listen to people. So after becoming a police officer, I became a detective, and then I became a hostage negotiator. And I was always a student of life as well, because I dealt with people who were victims of sexual assault and child abuse. And imagine this, Chris, and to everyone listening, could you imagine a male detective walking into a room after a woman has been brutally sexually abused and assaulted, and the first man she sees is a detective wanting to know all the details? And you can imagine how terrifying and how impossible that would be to even fathom that I would ever give you something like that.
My mom went through that, and she told me, she goes, they had the audacity to send a male cop in after I was raped.
Yeah. And and you're right. We're looking back years ago when males dominated the police department, and there were only a handful of women at the time. Mm-hmm. And this is where I found myself working in the sexual assault and child abuse unit, where there were 10 of us and 2 women. And to wait for a woman to get to your report would mean waiting for months at times. Whoa. Because of the ongoing investigations. And so I then had to do something that I really encourage people to do, is that if you're going to have a tough conversation, if you're going to even any kind of conversation, a conversation with your kid, anything, put yourself in their shoes for a minute. Be very, very aware of what would it be like to be in my little boy's shoes right now, or my little girl's shoes right now, or this woman who's just been brutally assaulted. What would I want to hear? What would I want to see? What kind of body language? Would I even want the detective to say a word? Would I just want him to sit there and just wait in peace, whatever? When you put yourself in the shoes of other people, you become more compassionate. And this is what I learned very early on, listening to people who were about to take their lives, just listening and being aware and putting myself in their shoes. And this is what I did, Christopher. I put myself in their shoes and was very successful in having people open up to me. Yeah. And so after that experience and going on to being a hostage negotiator, I also had the wonderful opportunity to do a peacekeeping mission in the Middle East. And I jumped at that opportunity after I got, of course, permission from my daughters and my wife at the time.
I read about that. I thought that was beautiful that you did that. That was really beautiful. Shows your integrity even more.
I had to. It was not just a mission for me. I mean, I was aware I could die, and I had to make them aware of that too. But I also had to share why I wanted to do this. Why did I want to stand in for my country and fight a war that wasn't mine? But what difference could one man do? Mm-hmm. And I had reached a place in my soul that I thought, if I don't do it, who else will? And I think I have something to share in the Middle East. That experience opened the door and turned the page to experiences I had never believed would happen. And this is why I know that you share this message with your listeners all the time, is that we had never know what the next page is going to hold, what story the next page is have for you. Sometimes you get to write it, and sometimes it's already written for you before you even step into the next chapter.
Amen.
And that chapter, as you know, having read the book, almost took my life. I was almost killed by terrorists, and I was about to die. And the last thing I remember thinking before the attack with my partner and I was thinking about my little girls, and I'm thinking I'd never see them again. And as fate would have it, and as God or the universe would have it, I was spared. And those are my experiences, just a few of my many experiences. But you're right. I don't know why I've been chosen to have so many different experiences, near-death experiences, and some really great experiences too. And I try to share as many of them as I can in the book to let you know it's anything is possible. And boy, you just never know what the world holds for you, but you really get to control a lot of it and focus on the things that you can control. And I did. I focused on, I could have been a victim, wearing a victim, like my dad.
Oh yeah.
Could have, he handed me the victim t-shirt before he died. You know, like I'm imagining this, like, here you go, boy, you know, you're a victim, you know, and you're never going to have a relationship, and you're never going to amount to anything because I told you so. And so did your teachers. And so here's your victim t-shirt. Go wear it. Have a lot of fun. Have a great life. But I said, no, I don't want to wear that t-shirt. And it's funny, I bring up the t-shirt. I don't know why, but when I was working in the sexual assault unit, after I had established a relationship and a rapport with the victims that I worked with, I knew that they would transition from me. They felt comfortable with me, and they would transition on to someone else, obviously, because their life continues. I'm not part of it. But before they left me, I came up with the idea of printing 2 t-shirts. One said victim and the other one said survivor. And I brought that in our last meeting, and I said, you know, I'm going to use a fictional name, you know, Jane. I said, you and I have come a long way, and you're doing great. And I said, now you're going to step through that door. You're going to meet other people, and your life is going to continue. But here's the thing: there's 2 t-shirts on this table, and I want you to take a look at them. Which one will you choose to wear? You don't have to wear it on the outside, but you'll always wear it on the inside. Will you be a victim or will you be a survivor? Every one of them chose a survivor t-shirt. Had to keep written over. And every one of them that I kept in touch with ended up saying, I'm a survivor. I don't let my circumstances define me. I define my circumstances. So that was a long 2-minute bio of me.
No, I wanted people to, I mean, they've already got the message of what it is that we can do in the conversation that we're having about listening and relationships and our own self-care and the words that we use with ourselves. But no, I mean, people got to understand who the person is that's sharing this. And I know who you are. So there's integrity with your word. There's honor with your word. When I was thinking about you, I thought integrity, honor, loving, caring. Like, I mean, that's what I think about when I think about Paul. That's why I wanted you on the show, to be able to talk about this. And Lord knows we could keep going there. Before I have a couple other questions, I have this question that it's also from the book that I definitely wanted to touch on. In the book, you talk about being controlled by fear. And so what is fear? And like fear from the perspective of how do we, what's the word I'm looking for? How do we create that fear? Where does the fear come from? And when you say being controlled by fear, what are some things that we need to be aware of that might be happening right now that may be disguised as something else, but it might be something that we're being controlled by fear?
Yes, and that's an excellent question. Fear is a reaction. Fear is an uncertainty. When we first come into...
Is it a protection also?
It is a protection. It is a protection. It is an uncertainty. It's all these things. And it originates from the very time that we were born. Because if you can imagine, when you're first born, life is empty and meaningless. It's like you have a vase in front of you, and it's full of clear water, and that's you as a newborn. You are a vase of pure water, just untainted, untouched. It's just beautiful. But then you come into this world in which there are sounds, there are voices, there are noises, things that you don't understand, and things that you can't understand at your tender age. But along the way, people will pour things into that empty vase, or into that, well, beautiful clear vase, and those are dirt. That's somebody yelling at you. That may be a parent. That may be an insult. That may be something. It may be somebody who's attacking you, and you're resisting all these things, but it's still tainting that pure water, so it's no longer clear as it was intended to be. So fear develops, as you said, to protect us, because we were instinctively given the ability to beware. We see it in people. Somebody walks up and says, well, there's something wrong about this picture. I don't want to get in that elevator right now. Something bad's going to happen. That was instinctive. That was it. But a whole bunch of other things comes into fear. Fear is a mechanism that can work for us or against us. Where it works mostly against us is when we fear the judgment of others, or the uncertainty of taking certain actions. That's where fear becomes a nemesis. It's where fear doesn't protect you. It keeps you isolated from experiencing something even greater. Mm-hmm. And fear and excitement are pretty much almost the same kind of emotion. They draw the same kind of energy. And I remember when and I talk about this in my book too, is that when I was about to give my TED Talk, and I had prepared for months on delivering this talk, and I was ready. But the day of, in front of 1,000 people and all those cameras, and overthinking to myself, this is going to be out there forever, Nadeau. So if you screw this up, guess what? People are going to be watching this in 20 years thinking, what a guy, and judging me and all that. And so right before I gave my talk, that fear had seized me, like a villain in the night, and it was choking me, saying, you ain't going out there. You forgot everything. I took everything away from you. You don't remember a thing. And I'm sitting in the back room, and I'm just like in the green room, just about ready. The MC is he's calling me up. He's doing one of these through the curtain. And I'm thinking, I forgot everything. I don't remember a word.
I've done that.
What am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I'm thinking, oh my God. And my heart is beating. And what am I going to do? And that's when I stepped back and I said, listen, Nadeau, you talk to people about this very thing. Uh-huh. Take a moment here. Take a moment. You are in control. You turn this fear into excitement. You get to go out there. You get to share something new, a new experience. Come on out there. Life ain't all rainbows and sunshine, but you're going to turn it into rainbows and sunshine. And so I stepped out onto that with a fresh excitement. And the moment that I stepped out on the stage, everything came back to me. Mm-hmm. Everything came back. My first words, everything from that TED Talk came back. So fear is both a villain and a hero. And the hero protects you from harm. The villain keeps you from greatness. And it will try to get you thinking that you will fail, that you will be judged, that you will not amount to anything. Can you imagine? Mm-hmm. How many of us wouldn't be married, or how many of us wouldn't have relationships if we let fear dictate everything about our lives? How many of us would not have become, well, like you, a podcaster, someone who goes on to help other people? If you were controlled completely by fear, you would never have stepped out and said, I'm going to do this. Right. And there's so many people who are afraid. And one of the richest places in the world,
graveyard.
Do you know where that is? Yeah. That's
cemetery.
Right.
We think the same, dude. Come on. I can finish your thoughts.
We do, because so many people died with that song in them, with that poem in them, with that book in them, with that business in them, and they never stepped out to their greatness. Guess what? I'm not always going to succeed at everything that I try, but if I don't try, I'll never succeed. Wayne Gretzky, who's a Canadian hockey player, was a Canadian hockey player. He once said, "You always miss." Yeah, that's right. Always miss 100% of the shots that you don't take. And that is true. Like, if I don't try, I'll never succeed. I had a friend of mine on my podcast, and he's a motivational speaker as well. And he says, "You know what it is, Paul?" He says, "I hold a plate of spaghetti." And I'm going, "Yeah, okay, a plate of spaghetti. What's that?" He says, "Well, I take that plate of spaghetti. Every one of those strings is attached to something I want to try, something I want to do." "Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. What do you do with that? What do you do with that plate?" He says, "I throw that plate against the wall. Some of it sticks and some of it doesn't." Hell yeah. You're right. So if you don't throw the plate of spaghetti against the wall, you'll never know what sticks. And what sticks can make you into something amazing, can take you out of something devastating, because you've had the courage to move beyond that fear and to meet Oz behind the curtain and say, "I see you. Mm-hmm. You're not the wizard that I thought you were, that I gave you all that benefit of thinking that you were the terrible wizard. You're just a man." Mm-hmm. And so, face your fears and just move forward and throw that spaghetti against the wall. Because same thing happened when I wrote my first book. What will happen if people don't like it? What will happen? Will people judge me? Well, guess what? I'm going to do it anyway. So here we go. 5 books later. 5 books later.
I thought it was 8. I thought I saw 8.
There were a couple of, I wouldn't call them books. I would call them more journals that really, let's throw in a journal. Oh, that didn't work. So I'm okay with that. The other ones did. And I kind of laugh at that. It's like, hey, I threw the spaghetti against the wall. The book stuck. The journals didn't. It's okay. What's next? That's what I keep asking myself.
Exactly.
What's next? Yeah.
What's next? I mean, people ask me all the time. I've got the wristbands on. They say, what is Unstoppable for? And I said, as a former 7th grade homeless dropout who lived in the backseat of a station wagon with 18 cats and 4 dogs and a mother with psychiatric conditions, how did I get to have a master's degree and all this other stuff? I never stopped. I never gave up. I took that imperfect action, like you're talking about, Paul. It's so poignant for what it is that we're talking about. We could sit here in paralyzation and inaction and bitch, piss, and moan about how things aren't coming to our expectations or, the way we want it. Or we can stand up and take responsibility and say, what can I do? And that's the conversation tonight is, what can I do? What can each of you do that are listening and watching this? What can you do in your own community? What can you do in your own city? Like, so oftentimes, Paul, we're trying to change the world. Oh, I want to do. It's like, I ask people all the time, like I'm doing that. I'm like, what have you done in your city? Like, what have you done in your local community? Like, I'm involved in my ward, the geographic locations here in Southern California. We have little wards like Ward 5, and we're all part of the city council. And I do stuff in my ward now, and I'm going to the city council meetings, and I'm being involved. I'm taking my own action and saying, okay, how can I be involved? How can I understand a little bit more? How can I be involved in the process? How can I make my vote count? Right. And people sit there and say, Chris, like, what can I do? And I say, when I vote, it takes me days because I go on and I Google, okay, what's this ballot measure? What is the initiative? Who is supporting it? Who's not supporting it? And I read all of that stuff and I make sure I'm informed. I don't sit there and I look at the sentence and go, okay, I'm going to say no, or is it Republican or is it Democrat? I get involved and I take ownership and I take responsibility to say, hey, like you said before, I'm one man. I'm one man who can cast a stone in a pond and create a ripple effect. I'm one man who can ask a lot of people a question and have them go, you know what? I was listening to this guy on this podcast the other day, and they have a conversation with somebody, and then those people have a conversation, and all of a sudden we've created a little bit of a ripple effect where people are sitting there saying, hey, I do have independent thought. Hey, you know what? I can look at this thing a little bit different. Like, so many people are, like, to your point, when I was laughing so hard because I literally highlighted fear versus excitement, because when people sit there and say, I'm afraid of something, I'm like, what would it be like if you were excited for it?
Yeah.
I get people look at me like, huh? I'm like, what if you were excited about possibly failing a job? What if you were excited about a failing business? What if you're excited about a possibly failing relationship? What do you mean, Chris? I'm like, because there's a possibility that it could be successful too. You get to choose that too. You get to choose the effort. Like you said before, Paul, so many people are saying that they're doing the best they can, but what is really our best? I did a whole podcast on this. One day I told myself, I called bullshit on myself, and I said I did the best I could. And I'm like, Chris, wait a minute. Did you really do the best? If there was an MTV film, I remember this back when MTV was, if MTV was following you, a film crew was following you, would you have done that, or would you have done more? Would you have done something different? And you catch yourself and you go, you know what? Hey, I was kind of giving myself a slide that I did the best I could. No, maybe I should have a little bit more integrity. Maybe I should think about that. Maybe I should go, you know what? I could do a little bit more. Okay, what does that more look like? Oh, it's a little bit fearful. Okay. I tell people, like, you get a choice to exist in life, or you get a choice to live life. Mm-hmm. And how cool is it when you get to the end of your life and you look back and you're like, I'm glad I took so many chances. I'm glad I took so many risks. I'm glad I fought for what was right and what was fair, and I risked for which that mattered, which, by the way, is a part of my eulogy. Fight for what's right and what's fair, risk for which that matters, and leave the world a better place for who I was and what I did. I wrote that in 2008. And so I tell people, we're telling people tonight, have a guidepost. Like, is your intention to leave this world a better place for who you are and what you do? Okay, how can you do that? And that's what Paul and I are illustrating tonight, is the fact that we're just two guys talking, but we have these ideas and we have these experiences and we have this opportunity and this passion to sit there and say, we are more the same than we are different. And we can look at our commonalities instead of our differences. And we can sit there and decide to take a chance and take a risk and speak up and question authority and question what's right and what's fair. Right. And I sit there and I talk about, people, like you brought up kids before. I mean, that's a subject we can all agree on. We want safety and security and opportunity for our kids, but depending on what you look at as safety and security, and like, that's where the conversation gets creative. What is like, in summarization of this conversation tonight, Paul, because I want to be respectful of you for your time. What would you, again, we're, almost in 100 countries, different languages, different ethnicities, different governments, different sexual orientation, different everything. So people are listening right now. What is your advice to them in summation of what we've talked about tonight?
There's so much that we've covered and so much that we haven't covered. And I could go on this conversation for hours more. As you said a little bit earlier, this could go well into the wee hours of the morning. 7 hours from now, we could still be talking. I'd probably have to take a few more drinks of water. But let me leave you with this, is that from the great Rocky Balboa, life ain't all rainbows and sunshine. It can be a mean and nasty place, and it will knock you down to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, and nobody's going to hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you're hit. It's about how hard you're hit and you can take and keep on moving forward, how much you can go and keep moving forward. And one of the things that he also adds to that is that people may judge you, or you may point the finger saying that you're not where you want to be because of this and that, this person or that person, but that's just an excuse. What really matters here, folks, what really matters is that you live the best life you possibly can. And one of the ways in which you do that is by taking control of your life, asking what it is you want out of it, really doing self-examination. This is one thing that a lot of people don't do. They don't examine their lives to see what's going well or what's not. They just argue and bitch when things don't go well, and they celebrate when things do. But how many of us take a conscious moment, maybe a morning or an afternoon on a weekend, where we're able to make a list? On the one side, we list the things that are going well. On the other side, we list the things that are not going well. The things that are going well, we celebrate. The things that are not going well, we examine. We look at them honestly and very clearly. A relationship that's not going well. So that opens the door to many questions. Is this a relationship I want to keep? Is this a relationship that needs to be worked on? Why is this relationship not working out? And take a look at yourself. Am I doing something that's contributing to this break in this relationship? And what must I do to make it better? So be aware of those things that are not going well in your life, Get rid of the ones that you don't need, that are keeping you down, and work on the ones that need attention, and be humble and be willing to step up. And as Chris said earlier, take accountability for what those things are. The other thing that I talk about in my book, which I think is very important, is finding your own Byzantium. And that is that this world is a very unpredictable world at the moment, with division, hatred, flag burnings, demonstrations, governments that appear to be crumbling and ripping our democracy away. And we really have to find a place in our soul where we can get away from this for a little bit and just take care of our mental wellness. It's so important for us to take care of our garden, because if we let the weeds of this world choke out the good in our garden, then we ourselves will be choked out. And that leads to depression, abuse of drugs, alcohol, whatever it is. There's a number of things that can take our soul away from us. And at the end of this world, folks, most of us, hopefully, will get a chance to look back on it. And I, for one, do not want to be visited by the ghost of missed opportunities,
Right.
or the ghost of regrets, who say, you know what, you could have done this. And I showed you that. I whispered it in your ear and you never listened. Let me show you what that would have looked like if you would have written the book, if you would have asked that person out, if you would have gone for that job, if you would have taken that. Let me show you what that's like. You don't want those spirits around you. You want the ghosts of rock and roll who say, dude, damn, that was fun.
Yeah.
Well, what are we going to do next time when we come back on the roller coaster? Man, that was cool. And I want to be with you, because this life is what we make of it. And if we are spectators and not warriors in the arena, then what the hell are we doing here?
Right.
What the hell are we doing here as spectators, or as victims, or as people who are suffocated by things that we think that we can't control? Yeah, there's certain things that you can't control out there. There is. But what you can control is what Christopher mentioned earlier, what we both agreed on. You can control what you respond to, how you respond to it. And by taking a moment, you become a first responder and not a first reactor. And Glenn Morshower gave me a story, and I'll say it very quickly. He says there's an ambulance, and the ambulance leaves the hospital, and it's on its way to a very tragic accident, blood and bodies all over the place. And in that ambulance is a driver and an attendant, and they're first reactors. And they drive into this accident scene, and they both jump out. And as first reactors, they look at it and they go, oh my goodness, oh no, this is terrible. There's so much blood. I can't take it. They jump back into the ambulance and they drive back to the hospital, and nobody gets cared for. He says, there's a second ambulance that leaves. They're first responders. And when they get exactly what to do, I'm here to help. And they go and they do it. And they become those responders who save lives. Which would you like to be? A first reactor or a first responder? Which would you like attending you? A first reactor or a first responder? It's first responder all the time.
Dude, ladies and gentlemen, what an amazing conversation. We've been going for an hour and 18 minutes. Dude, I could go another couple hours. Like we said before, we'll have to get you back on the show. Tell everybody who is listening. I put up a copy of the book cover for everybody who's watching, but for everybody who's listening, where can people continue the conversation with you? Where can they get this amazing book and read more of these stories and read more of this crazy opportunity that we have to change the world?
Well, thank you for opening that door as well. And you can buy the book on Amazon, and it's on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and it's called The Hostage Effect. And it is a book with interesting stories, both from our history. If you are someone who is interested in finding out what it really feels like to be a hostage, a physical hostage, I have many stories in there about hostages who spent years in captivity, and you will have a great understanding of what it's like to feel like a hostage. And in today's world, we don't need to be behind bars or in damp cells to be hostages. We can become hostages through our own governments, through the restrictions that are being imposed on us, through a number of different things that are preventing us from living a fulfilling life, a life that we deserve to live. And the answers are really in that book. Many of them are. And we've come to a crossroads here, just like Neo did in the Matrix. You can take the blue pill and keep living in this fantasy world where you think everything is going to work out and everything is good, and you got your pizza on the weekend and your beer on the weekend, and you can just take that blue pill and keep living. Or you can take the red pill and become aware and become your own warrior in your own life by opening your eyes to what is happening and by standing for what is right. And so, which will you? Will you be the Neo in your Matrix story? Or will you be someone who just takes the blue pill and just goes on living just an unfulfilled life? That's the question.
Ladies and gentlemen, Paul Nadeau, thank you so much, brother, for being here, for spending your time with us, your brilliance and your heart and your passion. Thank you for sending me the book. Thank you for fighting for the side of greatness, not the side of goodness, but the side of greatness. This has been an honor to speak with you. Where can people go and find out more about you on your website for people who are listening? Make sure you spell that out.
Yeah, just www.jpaulnadeau.com. And if you search my name on Google or through AI, I'm surprised how many things come out about me on those platforms. It's like, holy jeez, they knew about that. How did they find out about? Wait a minute, who was in my bedroom that? Like it was like, how do they know this stuff? So that's how you can find me. Just Google me, just throw my name in AI, go to my website. But thank you, Christopher. I want to say to you, thank you for the great work that you're doing. And I know much of your past because we've had conversations before. And you are that survivor, the one who wears that T-shirt. But not only are you a survivor, you're also an enabler. You enable other people to step into their greatness and to wear those T-shirts as warriors. And I can tell by the background there, the guitars, the loud music and all that kind of stuff. It's your vibe, buddy. And we appreciate you. And to all the listeners out there, folks, leave with the understanding that we get to create our chapters in our life. Don't let anybody write the chapters for you. This is your life, and you get to write it, mostly. But you get to write even the things that don't go well. You get to write a good ending to it. And that's the pen is in your hand. So write the best story you possibly can. And don't let anybody tell you that you're not great. We were all created equal. And many of us will step up and become very successful at anything that we try, but we got to try. So go on out there, live your life and try.
Amen, Paul. Thank you so much. There have been so many beautiful comments, and in the interest of the conversation tonight, I didn't acknowledge a lot of them, but thank you guys all for being here. Paul, I'm going to put you backstage. Don't go anywhere, so I'll have a quick chat with you. I'm just going to end off the show. You're the best. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. So here's what you get to do from this conversation. You could be inspired and you could go, oh man, that was great. And what Paul said here and what Chris said here and that question they asked and all that stuff is good. And then you could go pick up your phone or go on to the next thing and go on to your scrolling, or you can sit there and think, what am I going to do tomorrow? Who am I going to be tomorrow? I think the conversation tonight, you could tell Paul and I are really good people. We have good hearts and great intentions and the earnest desire to bring this world together, right? We're in the spinning blue marble in space. Paul describes it in the book like we're a speck of dust. And when we talk about this life that Paul just talked about, like when you think about getting to the end of your life, how do you want to look back? How do you want to see that movie play? Do you want to see that movie playing like, oh, I wish I wish I coulda, I woulda, I don't know, man, I wish I had a do-over. And I met a lot of people in my life who have been given those death diagnoses, who have come to me and said, Chris, man, how can I take the last part of my life and make it meaningful? How can I make the last 3 months meaningful? I did that last year for somebody. They got diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. And they talked about how they let life pass them by and how they always thought there would be someday. For those of you guys who listen to the podcast, you know that there is no someday on a calendar. There is no someday. There's the day you choose, the day you choose to act, the day you decide to no longer be a victim, like Paul said, a victim or a victor, right? You get to choose. When you wake up in the morning, you get to decide, are you the hero of your story or are you the victim of your story? Oh, poor me. And you heard Paul's story. Like there's so many opportunities for Paul to be not on this podcast, for Paul to be an alcoholic and a drug dealer or a gambler or a womanizer or whatever. And I don't know if he's any of those things, and God bless him if he is, right? We all have our ghosts in our closet. But the bigger picture and the bigger question that we can ask ourselves is, what are we going to do? And the bigger question you can also ask yourself is, who is watching me? Like if you have kids, what am I doing? What am I not doing? Are you raising your voice? Are you raising your concerns? Right? I have a 9-year-old son in the other room. His world is being impacted. And so as much as like Paul said, and I will admit this, and I've told you guys this, I'm fat and happy, man. I wake up, I listen to music. I have a great time. I fucking, help people. I go out and go to the gym. I work on my car. I play music. I help people. I do the podcast. I'm a dad. I'm a husband. I get to do all these things. But at the same time, I get to create this highlight reel in my life of the things that I've advocated for. And because I care about my son's future, I've had to go into the reality of life and read Paul's book and research AI and research what's going to happen in the next 3 years, what's going to happen in the next 5 years, right? The world is changing and it's changing fast. And like I said on my podcast where we talked about there's no normal, you have to take responsibility. Nobody's coming to save you. So here's the question I asked on TikTok earlier. When will you have had enough? When will you have had enough? Or have you had enough? Right? Story about I'll fuck the story up, but you'll get the premise. Guys walking by somebody's house and there's a dog sitting on the front stoop and the dog's kind of moaning. I'm like, why's your dog moaning? Oh, he's sitting on a nail. How come he doesn't move? Not painful enough. Right? So what can you do to create some leverage in your life? What can you do to create some pain in your life? For me, it's imagining my son getting to be 18 years old and saying, hey, what am I going to do for a job, Dad? All the jobs have been taken by AI. What am I going to do? So I'm getting involved in my community. I'm getting involved in AI. I'm getting involved in what's in the future. I'm getting him involved. I changed schools for him to go to a science school, engineering, like to learn this stuff. You have to be proactive and not reactive. And that's the thing we talk about here all the time on the show, is that you have to take that ownership and that responsibility. No regrets, right? You guys follow me on social media. How many times do I do hashtag no regrets? And it's tough and it's hard. Chris, it's so hard. Yeah. Life is hard. Tough situations, disappointments, hurt, pain, all that other stuff. But it lets you know that you're alive. It lets you know that you're living, right? Every night when I go to bed, the thing I recap is what I'm grateful for. And then I recap. Sorry, I'm tired. Recap what I'm proud of. What am I proud of today? I'm proud I had a great conversation with Paul. I'm proud that I went to the gym and I didn't feel like it. I'm proud that I went to the doctor and got my blood test. I'm proud of all these other things in my life. So when you wake up in the morning, number one, have gratitude for your position and where you're at in life, because there's a lot of other people that would actually change places with you. And then number two, set the intention. What's my intention for today? Most of the time I wake up, oh, the news sucks and today's going to suck and the traffic sucks and my boss is going to suck. And guess what? Everything does suck, because the reticular activation system in your brain goes, hey, let me focus on that. We talked about that before. If I'm focusing on everything that's wrong and terrible in the world, yeah, of course I'm going to be overwhelmed and depressed and sad and go to my short-term gratifications to escape it. But if I'm involved in the solution, if I'm excited about the solution, as imperfect as it may be, at least I'm doing something. I'm doing something. So what are you going to do? You're going to get Paul's book, and then you're going to get involved in your community. But first, you're going to work on yourself. Work on yourself. Then you can continue to come back here every single week on the Raw Unscripted show. If you're new to it, we got a lot more coming. We got a little bit of a relaunch happening in 2026. We're bringing more guests back. 2025 was a lot of solo shows because you asked me to do a lot of teaching. So I've done a lot of teaching. So if you guys missed out on that, go back and check out those podcasts. You guys can check them out on YouTube. You can check them out on everywhere. Just type in Raw Unscripted or type in hashtag No Excuses Coach, and you will find a ton of stuff. So let's together with Paul and everybody else that are watching in 98 countries or however many it is now. Let's all be the change that we bitch about. Okay. I love you guys. I'll be back here next week with a Christmas episode that you don't want to miss. It's just me, myself, and I. So God knows what we're going to talk about. So thank you. Thank you. Make sure you connect with Paul. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. And we'll see you next week on the Raw and Unscripted show.